Hey, what's going on, y'all? Welcome to the Endless TBR. My name is Christian, and this is my YouTube channel where I love to talk about books. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to click on this video where I'm going to be doing my mid 2026 book awards. This is a video that I've never done before. I thought it would just be a fun, silly little thing to do. I was basically looking back at all of the books that I've read in 2026 so far. I finished about 61 full length novels and read a collection of short stories and novellas as well. And I was just kind of looking back on which ones impacted me the most. What were some of my favorites? What were some of my least favorites? Which ones had the biggest emotional impacts on me? And I decided to do a little video where I just highlight some of my favorite reads so far in the first half of the year. So I've come up with a couple different categories here. I'm going to talk about at least one honorable mention per category. Some categories have multiple honorable mentions, but I'm just going to give out these little my personal awards to some of the books in 2026 that I've read so far that I've really enjoyed and have really impacted me. So let's get into it. So the first category I'm going to talk about is best nonfiction. I wasn't planning on making this a category, but then I found that I actually have read 5 nonfiction books so far this year, which is a lot higher than I thought it would be. I'm not really a big nonfiction reader, but I decided to give a shout out to a couple nonfiction books that have impacted me. The honorable mention for this category is going to be I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jeanette McCurdy. Awesome book about an amazing emotional journey from Jeanette McCurdy. It's her own memoir, talks about her childhood and the abuse that she went through and a lot of the challenges she went through when it comes to like body image and her relationship with her mother. So, an amazing book, very close to coming in first place for my favorite nonfiction. But first place is going to be Everything is Tuberculosis by John Green. I love this book so much. It was an easy 5 out of 5 star read for me. It is about the disease tuberculosis, the impact that it's had on humanity, kind of like the darker sides of humanity where we could have probably eradicated or close to eradicated it, but there is a lot of classism and racism in our world, and how tuberculosis is still very much alive and strong today in these poorer nations. And there's a very nice section in there about this emotional journey that John Green takes with this young boy named Henry as he's recovering from tuberculosis and learning to live with the after effects of it. So an incredible book, very short. It only took me about 6 hours to get through, but it was a great read. And as soon as I put it down, I was like, this is a 5 out of 5. And this book is the main reason why I decided to do a nonfiction category in this video, because I just wanted to give it a shout out. So definitely check out Everything is Tuberculosis. The next category is going to be the book that made me the most emotional. So the honorable mention for this category is going to go to Watchers by Dean Koontz. This was mostly good emotions. I thought it had a very heartfelt ending. One of the main characters in this book is a dog, and I'm very emotionally connected to my dog and my cats, my animals. So seeing the main character Einstein in danger at any point had me worried and stressed out. But ultimately, I loved where the book ended, and it just made me feel like good emotions. I felt happy by the end of the book. So that is the honorable mention. The book that wins most emotional for me, though, is The Dead Zone. That is a Stephen King book, and it was probably one of my biggest surprises of the year as well, because I went into it not really knowing anything about the book. I hadn't heard of The Dead Zone before, but then by the end of it, I was on vacation, I was on a cruise, and we were in like, a very happy environment. I think we were watching like one of the live shows, but I just had to get through the ending of the book. And I was emotionally devastated. I was so upset and depressed. The ending of the book was highly effective. It's one of my favorite endings of a book that I can think of ever, but man, it devastated me. And that is the main book that I look back on so far in 2026 that I think has had the biggest emotional impact on me. I loved it. I loved the main character, Johnny Smith. I thought he was such an awesome character. And just the whole overall plot of that story is one that did a great job of building up this emotional journey. And then Stephen King just bam hits you with a rock at the end. So love The Dead Zone. Such a great time. And it wins my award for the most emotional that I've gotten reading a book so far in 2026. Next up, my award for the best world building. This one has a couple honorable mentions. Honorable mentions are The Child Thief by Brahm. Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros, a book that I didn't really love that much, but I thought the world building was really cool. And then Ready Player One by Ernest Cline. That's an easy 5 out of 5 for me. But the winner for best world building is going to go to a book that I finished very recently, and that is Red Rising by Pierce Brown. It is a book that was sitting on my bookshelf for like a year, finally got around to reading it, and I was just kicking myself for having let it sit on my shelf for so long because I absolutely loved it. The whole class system. If you're unfamiliar, it's about this guy named Darrow. He lives on Mars. He's supposedly like on Mars as like the first set of humans that are kind of terraforming it and setting it up for future generations. He lives in a very, very harsh environment, but he basically learns that he was lied to his entire life and that his people have been lied to for centuries, and that Mars is very much inhabited by a caste system of like all these different hierarchies. It's based off of colors, with reds being the lowest, that is Darrow's people who live underground. And then there are these golds who are like these superhuman, ultra wealthy, rich people that kind of control everything. And then there's all these different classes in the middle, and just learning about the world building aspects of that story about how humanity spread out throughout the universe, how the caste system came to be, how the different colors operate within the world, and kind of like the stereotypes associated with them, and then overall Darrow's mission to kind of topple the regime from the top down was just so cool. And I'm very excited to get into books 2 and 3 because I'm sure the world building just expands even further. But just based off of the first book, I thought the setup was incredible, and I'm in awe of what Pierce Brown was able to do in like 400 pages with expanding that world of Red Rising. So that is definitely going to win my favorite book for best world building so far. Next award is going to be Most Unique Writing Style. The honorable mention for this one is Catabasis by R.F. Kuang. I didn't really enjoy this book very much, but I will admit that I thought R.F. Kuang's writing style was incredible. I love what she did with this book and how she wrote it. I just wasn't a big fan of like the magic system that she created. It took me out of the book quite a bit, but reading this book, it was my first R.F. Kuang book, and it definitely made me want to dive into some more of her books because I just loved the way that she wrote. Her description and her detail was fantastic. But the winner for this one is going to be The Only Good Indians by Stephen Graham Jones. This is one of the most unique books that I've ever read when it came to the writing style. I knew going into it that that was going to be the case. If you look at like the reviews for this book, you will see a ton of like 5-star reviews for people being like, this is such a uniquely written book. I love the prose. And then you'll see a bunch of 1-star reviews of people being like, the way that this guy wrote this book was so frustrating. I definitely ended up more towards the 5-star reviews. I just thought it was so unique. It was so like his sentence structure is so bizarre. And it took me about 50 pages for my brain to finally adjust to the way that he was writing. But once you do get a handle on it, it just feels very personal. Like it's written like I feel like I would think. I don't know if that makes any sense, but that's just the impression that I got from it. Is it felt like someone like truly their brain just going from brain to page the way that it was written. So most unique writing style, definitely going to Stephen Graham Jones. That was a first for me. I have not read any of his other books, but I'm definitely really excited to get into them. Next up, we're going to have my award for favorite character. Quite a few honorable mentions for this one. Honorable mentions, we have Georgia from Heart Shaped Box by Joe Hill. I loved her. Abatha from Slewfoot by Brahm, a great badass female character, just like out for vengeance. She is awesome. We have Johnny from The Dead Zone, who I mentioned earlier, a great character that I fell in love with. And then we also have Moscap from Psalm for the Wild Built and Prayer for the Crown Shy. Those are actually the two most recent books that I finished. And they were so delightful and so wonderful. And I love the Moscap. He's like this robot character who's just very quirky and silly. But my winner for this award is actually going to go to a different robot character, and that is Roz from The Wild Robot. I loved her. I read the trilogy a couple months ago, and she is just the most delightful, heartwarming character that I've read about this year. If you're not familiar with The Wild Robot, it is about this robot named Roz who gets stranded on this island with all these animals, and through a series of kind of pretty tragic events. She ends up kind of adopting this gooseling, this baby gooseling, and she has to act as a mother figure for this gooseling. And she also has to kind of learn to live amongst these animals. Like she's very, robotic, like black and white, but she's learning to kind of see the beauty in life and how to make animals get along and how to like interact with this society. And at the same time, she's learning to be a mother. And it's just such an endearing, heartwarming story. All three of the books were honestly fantastic. And I just fell in love with Roz. I had already seen the movie before I had read the books, so I knew that I was going to love Roz, and the books just made me love her even more. Such a great trilogy. Definitely check it out. Even if you're an adult, I know they're kids' books, but they pack an emotional wallop. So that is Roz from The Wild Robot getting my reward for best character. Next up is going to be my award for scariest book. My honorable mention is Into the Drowning Deep by Mira Grant. Personally, that book scared the crap out of me, but I am very scared of the ocean and open water. Into the Drowning Deep is very focused on thalassophobia. So if that doesn't scare you very much, you might not get the same fears out of that book. But for me, it definitely did the trick. But the winner of scariest book so far in 2026 is definitely going to be The Sorrow Stones by Felix Blackwell. This book, I talked about it a couple videos ago in some when I talked about some horror novels that I love, and this one is just one that has been burned into my brain since the moment that I finished it. It is so dreary and depressing, and you know that feeling when something bad happens to you and it's just like a lump forms in your stomach? That's kind of like the feeling that you get throughout most of this book. The main character, his name is Cole. He is finding these stones or is being given these stones by this mysterious figure, and he notices that they have a positive effect on his life, but at the expense of somebody else that he loves. So, if he's getting a lot of money because of this stone, he learns that somebody that he loves is going through like financial hardships and ruins because he is basically siphoning money from him. And all of these different stones do different things. Some of them make him more happy, but at somebody else's expense. Some of them makes him be able to think more clearly, but somebody that he loves goes insane because of it. And just as this book goes on, things get worse and worse and worse, and it ends in such a dark place. Like it genuinely freaked me out in many occasions. So if you want just a scary, unsettling book, I call this book a feel bad time because there is no silver lining in this story. Definitely check this one out. I love Felix Blackwell. He's written some of the most disturbing things that I've ever read, and I love this book. It's one of his most recent ones. So definitely check out The Sorrow Stones. Definitely, I mean, my scariest book of 2026 so far. All right, we have 2 awards left. The next one is going to be my biggest surprise of the year so far. So, honorable mentions. My one honorable mention is Snake Eater by T. Kingfisher. That is just kind of a book that I literally just picked up. I just blind grabbed a book and I ended up really, really enjoying it. So, I went into that one with zero expectations and thought it was a really fun ride. But my biggest surprise of the year is going to be Witchcraft for Wayward Girls by Grady Hendrix. Witchcraft for Wayward Girls is the first book that I've read by Hendrix, and I was going into it very, very unsure of how I was going to feel about it. If you kind of look at a lot of the reviews for most of Hendrix's books, it's again very polarizing. Some people say that they're the best books they've ever read. I've seen a lot of reviews where people cannot stand the way that he writes. So going into Witchcraft for Wayward Girls, I was kind of like, I don't know if I'm going to like this or not based off of some of the things I've heard from other people. Turns out I love Grady Hendrix's writing. I thought this book was incredible and emotional and disturbing. Like, man, does he do a great job at writing disgusting visual details, but also at the same time balancing a really heartfelt emotional journey. The bond between the girls in that book is just very heartwarming and endearing, and it just made me feel so connected to them. So that was definitely the biggest surprise of the year so far, but it kickstarted me wanting to read more of his books because now I'm 2 for 2 and I absolutely love what he's done so far. So that is my biggest surprise of 2026. And then coming in for the last award is going to be my favorite book of the year so far. I have a lot of honorable mentions for this one. It's a lot of books that I've mentioned so far, but these are all books that I thought about as potentially being my favorite read of the year. We have Slewfoot by Brom. We have Into the Drowning Deep by Mira Grant. We have Red Rising by Pierce Brown. The Dead Zone by Stephen King. Sorrow Stones by Felix Blackwell. Ready Player One by Ernest Cline. Watchers by Dean Koontz, and Heart Shaped Box by Joe Hill. All incredible books, like at minimum 4 out of 5 stars for all of those, some of them being 5 star reads. But my favorite book of the year has been When the Wolf Comes Home by Nat Cassidy. So earlier in 2025, I read my first Nat Cassidy novel. It was Mary. I absolutely adored it. I thought it was incredible. When the Wolf Comes Home was the second book that I decided to read by him, based off of some suggestions that I got from comments on this channel and from some friends of mine. And wow, I love this book. I thought it was so good. It has everything. It has, horror, it has gory details, it has a relatable main character, it has quest that I was fully invested in. It's basically this woman finds this little boy who is on the run from his father, who is like, seemingly abusive, but there's more to the story than just that. And so this woman has to bond with this little boy and try to protect him. But then it becomes apparent pretty early on in their adventure that the little boy has some very remarkable powers that cause a lot of tension between her and him. It reminded me a lot of Logan, like the Wolverine movie starring Hugh Jackman and Daphne Keane, where you have this mission, this bond between these two characters that is very tense, but you also have an emotional connection to them. And that's what I felt when I was reading When the Wolf Comes Home. And Nat Cassidy does such a great job at writing action and horror and violence. Like there were so many crazy, disturbing, and unsettling moments when I was listening to this book where I just had to like pause and go, what did I just read? This is crazy. So Nat Cassidy is quickly becoming one of my favorite authors. Definitely one of my favorite horror authors. I want to keep reading his stuff. And when I was looking back through all the books that I've read so far in 2026, When the Wolf Comes Home definitely stood out as my favorite read of the year. So I highly recommend you guys check that one out. It is an easy 5 out of 5 star read for me. All right, y'all. So thank you so much for watching this video. Kind of a little impromptu. I've never done a video like this before. So let me know if you guys like this video down below. And I can definitely do something like this at the halfway point of every year. Definitely at the end of the year, I'll go back and talk about some of my favorite books of 2026. But let me know down in the comments what some of the best books that you've read so far this year. I'd love to get some more recommendations and I love to hear them from you guys. And thank you so much for watching. My name is Christian. Y'all have a great rest of your day. Peace out.